beneath the icy waters of Norway, an upside-down steel giant still guards its secrets. Massive gun turrets point at the seabed, scarred by weapons once thought powerless against her. This is all that remains of Germany's so-called unsinkable battleship Tirpitz. She was crushed in just minutes by an attack that changed naval warfare forever. But if this fortress was built to survive anything, how did just a few bombs capsize her in a single morning? And what can her battered hull still prove about the limits of engineering, the force of a new kind of bomb, and the true cost of hubris? The answers start with Turpitz's rise, her origins, and the shadow she cast before her spectacular fall. Construction of Tirpitz began in the heart of Hamburg, at the Blohm & Voss shipyard, under the shadow of secrecy and ambition. The keel was laid on November 2, 1936, yard number 494 on the slips, a project that would consume nearly 5 years and millions of man-hours. On April 1, 1939, the hull slid into the River Elbe, a steel colossus stretching 251 meters from bow to stern. By the time she was officially commissioned into the Kriegsmarine on February 25, 1941, Turpitz had become the largest warship ever built in Europe. Her hull displaced 42,900 tons under standard load, swelling to over 52,600 tons when fully equipped for war. The beam measured a formidable 36 meters, giving her a broad, stable platform for the battles ahead. 4 massive screws, driven by engines rated at 163,000 shaft horsepower, could push her through the water at over 30 knots, a speed that rivaled many cruisers of her era. Turpitz bristled with armament. She carried 8 38-centimeter main guns, mounted in 4 twin turrets, 12 15-centimeter secondary guns, 16 10.5-centimeter anti-aircraft guns, and dozens of smaller caliber weapons. Catapults flanked amidships, ready to launch Arado reconnaissance planes. The distinctive island superstructure rose on the starboard side, while the unique turret arrangement, Caesar placed well aft, Dora at the stern, would later help confirm the identity of her wreck. Every plate, every weld, every frame reflected a single purpose: to withstand the heaviest blows any enemy could deliver. Yet even as Tirpitz took shape along the Elbe, the limits of her armor and design would soon be tested in ways no blueprint could predict. Allied naval planners faced a dilemma that stretched far beyond the steel hull of a single warship. From her hidden anchorages in Norway, Turpitz cast a shadow over the entire North Atlantic. She rarely fired her main guns in anger, but her mere presence forced the Royal Navy to keep powerful squadrons on constant alert, tying down more than 20 major warships and thousands of sailors who might have been needed elsewhere. Arctic convoys carrying vital supplies to the Soviet Union were rerouted again and again, sometimes at great risk and cost. The infamous PQ-17 convoy scattered and suffered heavy losses in 1942, not because Turpitz attacked, but because her threat loomed so large that British command ordered a premature withdrawal. The resource drain was staggering. By 1943, Allied records show that more than 1,000 Royal Air Force sorties were launched just to keep Turpitz contained, with bombers and midget submarines dispatched on dangerous missions into the fjords. Operation Source stands out. On September 22, 1943, 6 X-craft midget submarines slipped beneath the defenses of Kafjord, placing explosive charges beneath Turpitz's hull. The resulting blasts tore open engine rooms and flooded compartments, putting her out of action for 6 months. Repairs demanded enormous effort and resources, but when she returned to service, the threat cycle resumed. Every move she made forced a reaction. Every rumor of her readiness sent convoys scrambling for new routes. For Allied commanders, the ship became an obsession, a fleeting being that dictated strategy by its very existence, and made its eventual destruction a matter of necessity, not just opportunity. At first light, on November 12, 1944, 32 Avro Lancaster bombers swept over the mountains and lined up for their run. Each crew had a single purpose: to drop a 12,000-pound tallboy bomb on the Turpitz, anchored and exposed in Tromsø Fjord. The lead aircraft from No. 9 Squadron approached at 16,000 feet, braving bursts of heavy flak from the battleship and shore batteries. At 9:41, the first bombs were released. 21 tall boys fell in rapid succession, their delayed action fuses set to punch through steel and ignite deep inside the hull. Within seconds, spotters on shore and in the air saw direct hits. The first struck near the aircraft stowage on the port side, tearing through every deck before detonating in a fuel tank beside the turbine room. The explosion ripped open the torpedo bulkhead and sent seawater flooding through the lower compartments. The second tall boy landed close to the Caesar turret aft, either hitting or detonating alongside. Moments later, a massive shockwave from a near miss alongside the port beam battered the hull, compounding the damage. Bombs that missed still left their mark. Tall boys that struck the seabed or shoreline gouged out enormous craters, some over 10 meters wide, proof of the scale and violence of the attack. The ship's list increased almost immediately as thousands of tons of seawater surged into the ruptured port side. On deck, officers reported the heel reaching 35 degrees in minutes, signaling that the external blows were overwhelming the ship's defenses and that a deeper crisis was taking hold below. Flooding surged through the port side with a force no crew could match. Below decks, damage control teams rushed to seal bulkheads and activate counter-flooding valves, but the rising water was relentless. The list passed 35 degrees within minutes. Pumps designed for peacetime leaks were now overwhelmed by thousands of tons pouring through torn plating and ruptured compartments. Starboard tanks were opened in a desperate attempt to balance the ship, yet the rate of flooding far outpaced anything the engineers could control. On the bridge, orders came quickly. Captain Hans Meyer, faced with reports of impassable corridors and failing communications, ordered abandoned ship around 9:55. Crewmen scrambled up tilting decks slick with oil and water. Some leapt from the rails as the angle steepened, others tried to free trapped shipmates below. The noise of groaning steel and the shouts of men rose above the hiss of escaping steam. Survivor Otto Lind later recalled, "The deck became a wall, smoke and water everywhere. I pulled myself along the guardrail, the ship rolling under my feet. As the heel reached 60 degrees, the Turpitz grounded briefly on the shallow fjord floor. Then came a final, violent shift. The Caesar turret, its magazine likely ignited by fire or shock, erupted, hurling the turret clear of the hull and sending a shockwave through the superstructure. In less than 10 minutes from the first hit, the battleship rolled to 135 degrees, capsizing completely. Of the nearly 1,400 men aboard, about 1,000 lost their lives, most trapped inside the overturned hull. Only a fraction escaped into the freezing water, leaving a silent, inverted wreck as the final witness to their struggle. Decades after the Turpitz vanished beneath the cold waters near Hakoya Island, the search for her final resting place demanded more than memory or rumor. In 2019, Norwegian researchers deployed the Hugin autonomous underwater vehicle, sweeping the fjord with multi-beam sonar. The data revealed an unmistakable shape, an inverted hull, 251 meters long, resting at a depth of just 12 to 20 meters. Magnetometer readings traced the scattered remains of turrets and hull plates across a debris field more than 200 meters wide. The shallow, silty bottom preserved the wreck's outline, while high-frequency sonar mapped details lost to human eyes for generations. With each survey pass, coordinates once blurred by salvage and shifting silt came into sharp focus. The site was no longer a legend or a rumor, but a mapped reality, ready for forensic study. Damage patterns on the inverted hull tell the story in steel and silt. Photogrammetry confirms 2 tallboy bomb perforations on the port side, one through the aircraft's stowage deck and another near the Caesar turret. Each matches the dimensions of a 12,000-pound penetrator. Nearby, a cluster of seabed craters, some more than 10 meters across, aligns with bomb tracks recorded by the Royal Air Force and serves as lasting proof of the attack's scale. Naval engineers studying the site found the counter-flooding system simply could not keep pace with the sudden influx. That finding is visible in ruptured bulkheads and the asymmetrical collapse of the port hull, and it explains how flooding overwhelmed damage control. As a war grave protected under Norwegian law, the wreck is off limits to disturbance. Human remains may still rest within, and heritage officials insist on non-invasive methods for every new study. The Turpitz site stands as both forensic evidence and a solemn memorial, demanding technical rigor and respect in equal measure. Tirpitz's twisted hull still marks the cost of unchecked escalation. Her steel is now scattered across Norway, and her lessons are etched in naval doctrine. As new weapons reshape warfare, the myth of the unsinkable endures. What we leave on the seabed warns us. No fortress is forever. Share your thoughts below.